What's going on, you guys? Cozy here, and we're back with another OP14 deck profile. And today, we're diving into one of the most fun decks I've been jamming lately, Green Dracule Mihawk. If this is your first time on the channel, welcome to the cult. We're happy to have you. Snacks are in the back. If you're a returning member, you already know them snacks are there for you. Just grab what you need. But more importantly, let's talk Mihawk. This leader is the perfect example of what green does best in the one-piece card game. Resting, restanding, and generating value out of nowhere. If you're not familiar with his abilities, let me give you the rundown. Dracule Mihawk is a 5-life green slash leader with a static skill that says if your opponent's leader has the slash attribute, this leader gains plus 1000 power. That means against slash leaders like Red Zorro, Green Zorro, Buggy, Shanks, Smoker, Rayleigh, and of course the king himself, Goldie Roger, Mihawk sits comfortably at a 6k. Free stats are always nice, and his activate main is once per turn, rest one of your cards. If you have a character with cost 5 or more, you can set up to 3 Dawn as active, but you can't play characters from your hand for the rest of the turn. Now, the way I like to use this ability is simple. I make my plays for the turn first, then I use Mihawk at the end of the turn to restand 3 Dawn. That lets me either swing with extra pressure or keep Dawn up defensively for counter events. It's super flexible, super fun, and honestly, one of the smoothest decks to pilot once you get the rhythm down for it. Now, in today's video, we're breaking down the exact list I'm running, starting with 2k counters, moving through the character lineup, touching on the stage, and finishing off with events. If you want more deck profiles like this, or you're interested in learning Mihawk, let me know by liking this video, subscribing, and ringing that notification bell so you don't miss future breakdowns. We also have a Discord, which is in the description down below, so come join the cult. Hang out, talk all things One Piece TCG, let's build a community, and keep the conversations going outside of these videos. So, let's go ahead and roll this intro and jump straight into our 2K list. All right, welcome back, cultists and future cultists. Let's take a look at this deck itself because the curve of this list is a little unusual compared to what most green decks are running. And it all starts with our 2K list. Of course, I'm only running 7 2Ks in this particular list, which might look light at first, but trust me, the rest of the deck makes up for this, of course. So first up, I'm running 3 copies of Kikanojo. This card has an end of turn effect that lets you restand herself, which makes her incredible with the Mihawk ability. You drop her on turn 1, use Mihawk's ability every turn essentially for free, and she's safe from opponents' crackbacks, because she usually just stands up right at the end of the turn anyway. I usually stick 1 on the board, and then I keep the other 2 copies as 2Ks in the hand for counter when I need them. The other 2K we're running is 4 copies of the 4K Power Zorro from PRB2. On our opponent's turn, if an effect would rest this character, we can just rest another character instead and save him. He also has the great ability of being a blocker, which is super vital for the mid to late game of this deck. So this Zorro is an absolute brick on curve. He's reliable, he's a great chump blocker, he protects our key pieces. He also forces our opponents into awkward lines, and honestly, I prefer having him on the board over using him as a 2K because he saves us from so many problem situations down the road. After the 2K list, I do want to go over my character lineup. And so the first thing that I'm doing is I run 4 copies of the Searcher Perona, the 2K Searcher from OP12. This card is absolutely essential for the deck. Her on-play effect lets you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, grab either a green slash character or a green event, as long as our leader is the slash type. And of course, we obviously are. We're playing one of the greatest swordsmen in the One Piece universe after all. This search hits 27 cards in the list, which makes Perona one of the most important cards to see in your opening hand. She helps you fix early hands, find your big bodies, grab your key mid-game plays, or just dig for those crucial events that might keep you alive later. And once she's done her job, she transitions perfectly into a 1-king counter for the late game in our hand when you're fighting to hold your life or protect key characters. She's cheap, flexible, and incredibly efficient, and Perona is just a must-have for the deck. In the 2-drop slot, I'm running 4 copies of the Kitten Killer from ST24. When they hit the board, their on play lets you look at the top 5 cards of your deck and grab a Supernova character, and then putting the rest on the bottom in any order. And on top of that, when your opponent attacks, you can trash this character to restand 1 Dawn, giving you extra flexibility during their turn specifically. I love this card in Mihawk because it pairs beautifully with Perona. It adds another layer of filtering and gives us more consistency in finding pieces we need, as we can hit a potential 22 targets in the deck with this card. And it also helps us dig towards one of the big cards that we'll talk about later in the video at the top end of our curve. And that restand effect, super clutch. Being able to stand up a Dawn on your opponent's attack can really be the difference between surviving a push or having the extra resources to fire off a counter event. It's efficient, it's flexible, and it keeps our engine moving. Jumping up the curve, we're going to look at our 5 drops next, and starting with 4 copies of the Tashigi. She's a 5 cost, 6,000 power body with a 1k counter, and she brings a ton of utility to the deck. During our opponent's turn, if an effect that would remove her from the field, we can just simply rest one of our cards instead. That gives her incredible protection against KO effects, bounce effects, and even bottom deck removal like Gravity Blade and Red Rock, stuff that's been everywhere in the meta lately if you're playing against blue. Being able to blank those kinds of removal tools for the rest, just to rest a cost, is huge. She also has an activate main where you can rest 2 of your cards to give her plus 2,000 power until the end of your opponent's next end phase. That is a massive tempo play, and you can rest cards like Kikan Nojo or your stage to pump her to 8k and start swinging big without overcommitting resources. And since she keeps that power through your opponent's turn, she becomes a much safer body in combat as well. And personally, I try to get Tashigi on the board as often as I can, and when she's down, I'm looking to swing for the fences. She's sticky, she hits hard, she forces your opponent to deal with her in awkward ways, and it's just exactly what we want. Next, we're looking at our first Supernova that we can grab off of our Kitten Killer search, and I'm running 3 copies of the Jewelry Bonnie from OP07. She's a 5 cost, 6,000 power body with a 1k counter, and she brings some seriously strong tempo tools to the deck. Her on-play effect lets you target one of your opponent's rested characters or rested Dawn and stun it, meaning it doesn't refresh at the start of their next turn. This is huge. It lets you freeze problematic attackers on lockdown, and importantly, locks down that Dawn to disturb big plays on your opponent is trying to play up against. So like leaders against Boa, for example, you stun one of her Dawn to keep her off curve of cards like the Kuma or the 9-drop Boa, buying you a full turn of breathing room. Offensively, she's great too. A 6k swing forces at least a 2k counter out of your opponent, or sometimes any counter at all, depending on the target in which they drain their resources early. That pressure adds up fast and sets you up to take over the game once your bigger bodies and events come online. Bonnie gives us disruption, tempo, and a solid attacker all in one package, which is exactly what she earns in the slot on this list. Lastly, we get into the only non-searchable card in the entire deck outside of the Searcher Perona herself, and that's going to be the big girl Perona. She's a 5 cost, 6,000 power character with a 1k counter, and her on-play effect is seriously impactful. When she hits the board, up to 2 of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less cannot be rested until the end of their next turn. This is an incredible counter to Emu, completely shutting off Mars and Warcrity, which forces the opponent to rely on Dawn for their defensive events, or even lose more cards from hand as you push for lethal. Outside of Emu, this also hits major pieces like Marco and Ace, preventing that draw 3 and denying Ace a huge swing and card advantage. And she's not done. On KO, Perona lets you rest one of your cards and then play a 5 cost or less character from your hand for free. That can be another Bonnie, another Searcher, or even a Tashigi, letting you set up an 8k swing for the following turn. The extension potential here is absolutely wild. Whether she hits the board early or late, Perona feels amazing at any point in the game and often gives you explosive follow-up plays for your opponent that they just can't prepare for. Next up, I run 4 copies of the 6 cost Trafalgar Law from OP13. This card is a powerhouse in the late game. If you're at 1 or less life, he becomes a blocker, which is huge for stabilizing when you're trying to close out the match. But the real value comes from his on-play effect. When Law enters, you can bounce one of your characters back to your hand and then play a character with a cost 5 or less. Hitting Shambles on a Searcher Perona and turning her into a 5-drop Perona, a Tashigi, or a Bonnie just adds massive value to your board. Even just playing him to bounce something small and drop another Searcher helps you dig for the exact pieces you need to seal the game. Having a big 6k body also helps you dodge a lot of rust-based interaction that normally shuts down blockers, making him more reliable than most defensive tools. The only downside, he can be a brick in your hand at times, especially early, so just be mindful of when you commit him and make sure your counter math doesn't get too clogged. When played at the right moment, Law is one of the strongest tempo swings this deck has. Alright y'all, it's time for the big boys. Kicking things off at the top of the curve, I'm running one copy of the 9-cost 11k power Shanks from ST16. This card is all gas, no brakes. His on-play effect lets you KO any rested character, which is massive in today's environment. If you're playing into something like Ace, and they just rested a Newgate blocker, Shanks comes down and deletes it instantly. No conditions, no hoops, just clean removal. He solves so many problems that boards have on his own and gives you a huge tempo swing with the moment he lands. And after clearing the threat, he stays on the field as an 11k beat stick, threatening massive pressure on the following turn. He's not always needed, but when you find the right window to drop him, Shanks just absolutely takes over games. And of course, the leader of this deck can't go without his namesake character, so I'm running 2 copies of the 9-cost Dracule Mihawk for 10k from OP14. When this character is rested on our turn, we can choose one of our opponent's characters with a cost 9 or less, and that character can't be re-rested until the end of our next turn, which puts this effect into an absolutely ridiculously strong field because it shuts down huge lines of play, whether it's stopping a massive blue-purple Luffy swing, locking down an important blocker, or freezing a key attacker for an entire turn. Mihawk gives you a ton of control over your opponent's board, and the best part, you can trigger this effect by arresting him with your leader ability, which then refunds you 3 Dawn. So, in a lot of situations, this Mihawk effectively plays like a 6-cost body with a high impact stun effect attached to it. He also has on an opponent's turn once per turn ability, where we can trash 1 card from our hand, give one of our leaders or one of our characters plus 2,000 power for the battle, taking those bricks and turning them into 2Ks. This is incredible for stabilizing when our hand is super bricky and you're trying just to survive one more turn to close out the game. The defensive flexibility he brings is honestly unmatched at this cost level. Mihawk hits the board, locks things down, fuels your leader effect, protects your life, and helps you push for lethal, and he really does everything you want on the top end of this curve. And then the final character we run is a full playset of the Law and Beppo from ST24. This is our 10-cost 11k power monster, and honestly one of the scariest top-end plays in the entire deck. On play, Law and Beppo lets you rest one of your opponent's characters, and that character does not become active during their next refresh phase. This is an entire turn cycle of lockdown, huge for shutting off major threats. You can rest a big Newgate blocker, freeze a key attacker, or stop a problematic ability user before they ever get value. Then, if your opponent already has 2 or more rested characters, your leader gains plus 2,000 power until the end of their next end phase. That means your Mihawk can sit at 7k or 8k if your static slash buff is active. Trying to punch through a leader this big is borderline impossible for many decks, especially when you're already controlling their board. And here's the crazy part. If you chain 2 or 3 of these back to back, game's basically over. Your opponent gets stuck with multiple stunned bodies, your leader becomes an untouchable wall, and your massive board advantage just snowballs. Law and Beppo gives you dominance in the late game and often sets up the cleanest win conditions this deck can deliver. This card closes games. It doesn't ask, it demands your opponent deal with it. And most of the time, they just can't. And so that's going to wrap up our character list. Let me move on to the stage. Of course, I'm running 4 copies of the 1-cost Coffin Boat. And I gotta say, seeing Mihawk glide in on this tiny boat in the anime was just pure oral farming, dude. Like, this man oozes confidence, and this stage absolutely captured that energy. Coffin Boat has an on-play effect that lets you draw a card as long as your leader is Mihawk. giving you immediate value and replacing itself in the hand. And at the end of the turn, it sets one Dawn active if your leader is Mihawk as well. It's incredibly efficient for this deck, letting us extend our counterplays during the opponent's turn while maintaining tempo. Almost like a mini green-purple Dofi leader effect. And overall, it's just pure value and easily earns its spot as a 4 in the list. For events, I'm running 4 copies of I Know You're Strong, so I'll go all out from the start. As a main effect, you can rest 2 of your Dawn and choose up to 2 of your opponent's characters with a cost of 7 or less, and those cards won't refresh during their next refresh phase. As a counter, your leader gets plus 3,000 power for that battle. I mostly use this as a counter event because it's incredibly efficient defensively, but the main effect shines in mid-range tempo matchups like our own matchup in the mirror, where stopping 2 attackers for a full turn can completely swing momentum. It lets your big bodies fight into their board a second time before they can reapply pressure, so draining their resources and opening the door for you to dominate the late game. And thanks to Mihawk's leader ability, you can even set up an end of turn sequence where you rest Dawn for the leader effect, restand 3, and still have these resources to fire off its main effect when the timing is just right. I'm also running 3 copies of what I would call probably the best green event in the game right now, which is Dead Man's Game. This 1-cost event has an incredible main effect that just lets you rest 3 additional Dawn to rest up to 2 of your opponent's characters or even their Dawn cards. As a counter, it gives your leader plus 3,000 power for the battle, and I gotta tell you, I've closed out so many games using this main effect on this card, especially because with Mihawk's ability, you can rest 1 card and restand 3 Dawn, and effectively making this card feel just absolutely insane for a single Dawn. The tempo swing and control it provides in this deck is absolutely insane, and its flexibility as both offensive and defensive tools is exactly why it earns a 3 slot with 0 hesitation. Now, tech options. I run a single copy of the Billion Worldfold Tricolism. As a counter, it gives your leader or one of your characters plus 2,000 power for the battle. And if you have 8 or more rested cards as a condition, we meet pretty much every time during the endgame. It grants an additional 2,000, effectively making it a 4K counter. Its trigger effect is also super solid, letting us pop a 3-cost or lower character from our opponent's board, which it's nothing too flashy here, but it's incredibly reliable in the late game and serves as a strong emergency defensive option when the match gets super tight. And lastly, I'm running a single copy of Spider's Web. As a 2-Dawn counter event, it gives your leader or one of your characters plus 4,000 power for the battle. It also lets us set one of our characters as active, which can save a key body at crucial moments, especially a blocker that we need for an additional swing, or even like a Tashigi or anything like that. Its trigger gives our leader plus 2,000 power for the entire turn, and that's where the card really shines. In my draft board logic when adding it, I imagined like Law and Beppo turn where the leader's already sitting at 7 or 8K, flipping this and suddenly puts Mihawk at a 9 or a 10K for the whole turn. Now combine that with the Dawn held up for counter events, there's absolutely no way we're losing on that turn from a push. It's a flexible tech piece that protects both our board and shores up our defenses exactly when the opponent tries to turn that corner. Looking at the deck as a whole though, it is incredibly fun to play. I love decks that extend plays. They create unique decision trees and let me make a bigger impact on the board than a typical strategy would. This build gives me major Smoker vibes when I first played it, and honestly, I'm here for it every second of it. To break it down statistically, we're running 7 2Ks, 19 1Ks, 15 bricks, and 9 counter events with an average cost of around 4, which means we're usually playing 2 to 3 cards a turn depending on how aggressive we want to commit our board while still holding up defensive options. Overall, the deck is a blast and it performs decently in the current meta, and I genuinely think it's going to spike once rotation hits. So if you're interested in playing Mihawk, I'd grab these cards now before the prices climb up on it. And so this is my Mihawk list. Let me know what you think down in the comments. If you like these deep dive breakdowns, show me some love by liking the video, subscribing, and ringing that notification bell so you don't miss a single upload. And I'll see you guys in a week with another leader breakdown, and later this week when we showcase just how powerful this Mihawk deck really is on the next 2 uploads. And until then, peace and love, y'all.